Hello from Teacher Toy Shop. Today I would like to show you how I dissect an owl pellet. You will need an actual owl pellet. The owl pellet's inside here because it's been sterilized. We'll unpack it in a moment. You need some kind of probe. I'm using a skewer, a bamboo skewer, but any kind of probe with a sharp end like this will work. Some tweezers. It's helpful to have a magnifying glass. And today I'm going to use the method that involves soaking the pellet first because I find that it's easier to pull it apart and get the bones out without, or at least with less breakage. It's nearly impossible not to break the bones. But I find that if it's been soaked first, that helps. But I have done plenty of dry owl pellet dissections as well. So if you choose to skip this step and dissect it dry, that's fine too. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and unpack it. So it's been heat sterilized, which you always want to do. So somebody's collected this pellet from, because owls, this is a barn owl pellet, and near where they roost generally, they cough up, they regurgitate these pellets. So this is what it looks like. So somebody has gone and collected this, and then it's been sterilized. Before soaking it, which like I said, I'm going to do, it's probably, if you're going to measure it, I would recommend doing that while it's dry. I mean, obviously you can when it's wet, but it's just more pleasant. So just taking a look at this one, it's about 5 centimeters long and about 3 centimeters wide and about 2 centimeters tall. So this is a nice kind of somewhat medium large owl pellet. So I'm going to go ahead and stick it in the water here. This is very tightly packed. This is very tightly packed, so I'm going to have to leave it for a few minutes. But it's always nice to look, by the way, before you start your dissection, just to see if you can see some things. And already I can see this one, I can see lots of little bones sticking out. In general, the fur tends to be on the outside, and we'll find most of the bones on the inside. But this one, you can see quite a few right here. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this in the water and push it down, just get it nice and wet. And I'm going to leave this for a few minutes and then come back because it's so tightly packed, it takes a little while for the water to soak in. So I'll be back in a few minutes. All right, welcome back. It's been about 10 minutes, and let's see if this is enough time for the water to have soaked through. I'm going to go ahead and put this on this plate here just to reduce the mess. Okay, so the next step is to break into this owl pellet. As I mentioned earlier, you want to be really careful to do that slowly because the bones inside this pellet are quite delicate and quite small. You can already see some of them, and they are easily broken. And you won't really be able to avoid breaking some, but you really want to try to minimize it. So work slowly, deliberately, and carefully. The trick here is to slowly separate the fur, which you don't need, from the rest of the stuff that you find in here, which you do. So I'm just being really super gentle and separating things. I see a nice big piece in there, which is likely a skull, but we'll find out. Okay, so this is coming apart nicely, which is one of the things I like about using the water, is it's just a little bit easier to get everything to come apart. This looks like a tibia fibula right there, and what I'm going to do is, just in order to start separating things, I will have a little plate with a paper towel on it just to help things dry a bit. So let me rearrange here. Okay, and this is the fun part. Finding lots of little things inside. Ooh, this might be a second skull actually. Yep. Right. The skulls are arguably the most important because they're the most helpful in terms of figuring out what this owl ate, at least for these couple of meals before it regurgitated the pellet. Now, this is very common to have the the mandible, that's what I'm looking at right here, the mandible to not only separate from the rest of the skull, but for the two pieces of the mandible to separate from each other, which is what's pretty much happened right here. So that's one part of the mandible. By the way, I can already tell right here that this is a rodent. This one is, because you can see there's this tooth here, and then there's a bunch of teeth here, and this gap here tells you that this is a rodent. So this is either a mouse or a rat or a vole, and we'll get to how to tell the difference in a little bit. So that's the lower mandible of that skull, or half of it, and here comes the other half plus the rest of the skull. Just want to tease away fur. Let's look a bit of the back of the skull here, I think. Or no, maybe it's, well, we'll take a closer look in a bit. Getting a little hair as much as I can. You're not going to get all the fur off the skull, but or off of the bones, but just do the best you can to get the fur off so you can really study the detail on the bones. Okay. We'll come back to that, but I'll put that down there for now. And so that's the upper part of the, whatever this rodent is, rodent skull, and the other, if I tease away the fur there, the lower part of the mandible is going to separate, which is normal. Like I said, that's almost always going to happen. Okay, oh, and then here, I already know these are the two pelvic bones. And we'll look at that later, and I can show you how I know that. Of our rodent, probably. And let's see what else we can find. A bunch more bones right here. It's a vertebra. There's another vertebra right there. Let's see what these little bones are. It's a little painstaking to watch, I'm sure, but it is a good idea to do this just so you can minimize what you break. Okay, so there's some more. That might be a bit of a challenge to figure out what those are, but we'll take a look. Okay, and this looks like it could be a rib. You'll find a bunch of those. Just try to get a bunch of them. You may not get them all. They're really small, as you can see. Okay, another vertebra, I think. And can't see what that is, but my guess is it's another piece of the vertebral column. Okay. Something here. A little tiny bone. And a bunch of little tiny bones in here. Okay, now let's come over to this section. We'll come back and, oh, be another. Okay, let's get this section here. See how many skulls we've got. You can feel there's just a lot of bones in here. Usually a barn owl, but usually these pellets, sometimes they only have one, But usually they have, I would say, on average, like two or three. I mean, you might find up to 5, and again, you might just find one, but usually I get at least 2 skulls out of these pellets. It sort of depends. Okay. There's clearly a skull right here. I should be using the probe. Okay. Part of it just fell apart, unfortunately, which, like I said, is pretty common. You can see we're looking at yet another rodent. This is the teeth, and then there's the teeth, and there's this gap called diastema or diastema. I should look up how to pronounce that. Okay, but this seems to be the back of the skull here. So, you know, and one thing that's hard, of course, when doing these dissections is, you know, just thinking about the fact that these are animals that, you know, did die. You know, the barn owl needed to eat, and so it did kill these animals, and that is, you know, I struggle with that too. So if that's one of the things that you're thinking about, these issues are hard. You know, for one animal to survive, another one winds up having to be eaten, and that's definitely a hard concept to handle sometimes when doing these dissections, and to think about, you know, the little rodent, whatever animal it is here whose bones you are handling. Okay, so there's another one, and then let's see what other bones we can find in here. And I don't know if you remember the shape from the last pelvic bones that I pulled out, but this is definitely another pelvis. Could be a humerus or a femur right here. This looks like a fibula, tibia, fibula. I always mix up those words. Okay. There's another one of those fibula. It is really easy to break and separate these. These are 2 bones, which humans also have in their legs, but this one's super delicate. I can hear bones breaking, which I do not love. That is a little vertebra. You can see in the other pelvic bone here, the mate to the other one, because those come in pairs. Bunch of bones here. My guess is that those are the lower arm bones, but I'm not quite sure. We'll take a look at the pictures to try to help. The radius and ulna, that's what they're called. Oh, there's the, again, a separated lower mandible. That goes with the skull. Oh, there's a humerus or a femur. Take a look. These look like some ribs in here. It's nice to grab some of these just to so that when you're recreating your skeleton later, you have these little tiny ribs. Let's see. We have a whole bunch of ribs. Okay, let's see what else we can find among these little bones. Looks like another vertebra. Another vertebra. Okay. I see more in there, but let's come back because I see a whole pile of interesting looking bones over here. Let me just grab a few easy to grab ribs that are sticking out. Just turn this a little bit and try to come over to this siding piece, although I do have an urge to get this little rib as well. Okay. All right, so let's see what we've got going on in this section. I'm not 100% sure what this is, but I'm guessing this is also back of the skull, just from its size and shape. This is probably a broken piece of the scapula. That's my guess. The scapula is the shoulder bone. I think that's another mandible. Yes, so that actually implies there was a third animal here. I don't know if we're going to come across a third skull. It doesn't look that way, but it does. I now have 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, wait, maybe that was just part of this guy's mandible. Sorry, I may have misremembered how many mandibles I had. So all right, so our count is still 2 skulls in this, 2 animals in this one. I don't actually necessarily know that these go with this and these go with this bird. I mean this animal. I'm keeping them separate, but the truth is I don't know how they entirely get tangled up in there. So those could be overlap bones from each other's. Okay. Oh, that looks like a radius ulna, or maybe that's yeah, I think that might be a radius ulna. Take a look. There's a lot of nice bones in this one. Okay. And by nice, I mean, you know, whole, so you can have a chance of figuring out what they are, or a better chance anyway. Sometimes you'll come across insect exoskeletons because they do eat insects. Sometimes I come across insects, worms, other things, bugs that actually are not digested, and that's a sign that actually don't forget these pellets they were sitting around for a while before somebody came and collected them. And sometimes what happens is other animals, find the pellet and crawl in there for shelter. So sometimes you'll find that. So it wasn't even something that the owl ate, but rather something that moved into the pellet after it was regurgitated from the owl. And that can happen too. All right, let's see what else is in here. Looks like another vertebra. What's this? I think this is a vertebra. Okay. It's kind of a little fun treasure hunt to go through here and see what bone parts you can find and figure out what you have. Nice big rib. Okay. I'll pull out a few more here and then we'll see what we can start identifying. Vertebra. And okay, in the interest of time, you actually still could go through. There's clearly some more bones to be found in here, but I think I'm going to stop here for the moment in the interest of time and show you what the next step is. Okay, so once you've finished pulling all of the bones out of there, and you feel pretty confident that you got most of the interesting stuff. What you're interested in, of course, are the bones themselves. Not the fur. So this is the part that we're going to take a little closer look at. All right. So the next step is you will need a sheet to identify. You need the sheet to sort your bones, I should say. And then you definitely need a sheet to help you identify what these bones are. So obviously we have listed across the top here the more common things that you're likely to find in an owl pellet. Barn owls love to eat mice, voles, rats, shrews, moles, and birds. So we're going to start with that, and we'll start with the skulls, which is obviously the easiest thing to identify. So these two here are clearly skulls. And so there's one. And you can hear my dogs in the background. There's the other skull. I'll put that piece with that. And it looks like a rib. A rib or two may have gotten caught up in the skull. I'll put that down with the rib. And these are the mandibles, the lower jaw bones. So you can see those. You can see those across here. They're shown broken apart because they're usually going to be broken. You might get lucky and find a whole one. The bird one is the one that's most likely to be found whole, but occasionally you do. So I'm going to put the lower jaws in here. I think this is the part of the skull, so I'm going to stick that there too. All right, so next up, what can I see? Well, you see the pelvis is often pretty obvious, less so in the bird, but you can see this right here. So I know, I've looked at these enough that I just recognize right away that pelvis shape. So we've got a few of those, and I'm going to go ahead and put those in the section marked pelvis here. 1, 2, Here's the third one. Oh, here's the fourth one. So we got lucky. We found they come in pairs, as so many things do. So we have all four of them, and they're nice and complete. Actually, that might be a little hanger-on vertebra that'll stick down here. Okay, so what's next? So down here, I mentioned the tibia, fibula, and those are the lower leg bones, and you get the thick one and the thin one. And again, here we've been pretty lucky. We've got those. Often the little one breaks off right there, but they're not in the case of these two at least. So we've got those, and then I think these as well look like they are contenders for tibia fibula. All right, so then let's see what else we can do. The scapulas are these flat pieces, and unfortunately ours did not come through whole, but they tend to look like these flat pieces like this. So less so in the shrew, the mole, and the bird, but mouse, vole, and rat, which, as I mentioned earlier, I can already see that we have a mouse, a vole, or a rat. We know this is a rodent, and I'll get more into that in a little bit more detail in a moment. But those flat pieces tend to be the scapulas. I'm going to take a guess that this is another broken scapula. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to take a guess on that. Okay, so the vertebra pieces, you get a variety. You're most likely to get these little tiny pieces like you see there. Sometimes I get a piece of tail, but it's usually the tail pieces have broken apart, and so you're gonna get these individual vertebrae, these little loops. So there's one there, and these are all little vertebrae, which are the backbones. So I'm just gonna put a collection of them here, and let's see that one. I'm not sure. That could be one. That's a nice looking one. Okay. Nope, there's another little one. Okay, good collection of vertebrae going there. And now the trick is to try to figure out, so the upper arm, we've got femurs, which are these bones here, and then the upper arms. If you have a mole, the upper arm bone is super obvious, but with the rest of them, this can be tricky. The humerus tends to be shorter. The upper arm bone tends to be shorter than the femur, so that's one way you can try to guess. So this is going to be tricky for me, but I'm going to guess that this is a femur. So that's the upper leg bone, which is the longest bone in the human body. And we know we have two of these animals, so I'm going to take a guess that these are the other two femurs. You can look at my work here and see if you agree. Again, we know it's going to be one of these three, so I don't know why I'm pointing to the other two. And then we need the humerus, so the upper arm bones here, the other three, I mean. The humerus, the upper arm bones here. So let's, I'm going to take a guess that that's these guys. These bones. I missed a few vertebrae there. Okay, and now let's see. So I didn't have any other insect parts and other stuff. So the radius and ulna, again, often those are two delicate bones. Often one of them's broken off, which may be what happened here. I'm not actually sure. I'm going to guess that these are some radius and ulna bones. I will admit I'm partly doing that based on sort of size and what we're seeing, but I do not know if I got that right. And I now have too many of them as well. So yeah, you may do a better job than I do. It's possible those shapes of those actually look like even better contenders for the radius ulna bones, and I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I'll put that one back. Yeah, I feel like these two are more likely just based on their shapes. Okay, and then these rounded ones, those are going to be the ribs. So these round, delicate little bones here. That looks like it belongs in the vertebra. So let's get a few ribs. And yes, I have a few unidentified bones here, but we are going to, does that go in the radius ulna category? I feel like shape-wise, that one also looks like it looks like it had a bone piece broken off of it. So I'm gonna guess, I'm gonna put that there. Okay, so we will, maybe that went with it. Not sure. We're gonna stop there and in terms of sorting. And I'll move that out of the way. So, okay, so we used our bone identification chart. There's a little rib. So now the next question is, what do we have? So now what you can do is use your dichotomous key and try to figure out what it is you have. So, let me move the bone identification chart out of the way. And let's take a look. The best way to try to figure out what you have is to look at to start with the skulls. So the first question is, does the skull, I'll move this over a little bit. Does the skull have teeth or holes where teeth once were? So why don't we take this skull right here? And yes, it has a tooth there and it has a tooth there. So, and again, if you want to take a look at this one, actually maybe this one's even a little bit more complete and better to use. You can see there are teeth and there's teeth right there. Now sometimes the teeth will have fallen out, so you have to look to see if there were holes for the teeth. And so the reason it's asking you this question is, if there is no evidence of teeth, there are no teeth and there's no holes, then it's probably a bird. But if there are, then we go to the next question. Is there a gap between the front and the back teeth? So I'm taking a look at this skull right here. There's the front teeth right there, and these are the back teeth, and there is definitely a gap. So we say yes, there is a gap. So now it says, is there an extra set of 2 small peg teeth behind the top front teeth? So I take this right here and I look. Is there an extra set of teeth right here? No. If there was an extra set of teeth, that would tell us it was a rabbit, which is a little unusual to find in an owl pellet, but it can happen. But I'm not surprised. I do not see a second set of teeth right here. So the answer to that question, underneath the top front teeth, is there an extra set? No. So we're going to go with no right here. Now, this is the interesting thing. Pull out a tooth. And they want to know, does the individual tooth look like rows of ridges? So this is kind of fun. So you go into here and you take out a tooth. Aha. So I don't know if how well you can see that, but this does look like rows of ridges. So if it looks more like a human tooth, where you see 2 small roots with a tooth at the other end, that would be different from what we're looking at here. So then we would know it was a mouse or a rat. But this looks like these rows of ridges right here. I don't know if I can hold that. Oh, I know, I have a magnifying glass. I don't know if you can see that any better right there. But because this is rows of ridges, it says yes, this is a vole. So this particular one is a vole. And this one, I'll see if I can pull out a tooth from here and we can try to determine if this is also a vole or if this is a mouse or a rat. Oop, I just got a piece of a tooth. These teeth are broken. You can also pull the teeth out from the lower mandible, which might be easier to do here because these are pretty broken. I'm not getting a good answer with there. Okay, although let's try the lower mandibles here and see. Oh, yeah, these are ridges as well. So it looks like we actually have two voles, unless this is, but these are the smaller ones, so I think these went with, yeah, I think this is a smaller vole. I can't tell with these little tiny teeth. I don't know if these are undeveloped. So yeah, I think these teeth look like ridges to me as well. So I think what we have in here are two voles, which is definitely interesting to see. Voles are definitely a popular food source for barn owls. I mean, they like the other animals too, but that's a pretty common thing to find. So the next thing we're going to try to do is put together a complete skeleton, or as complete as we can make it. Obviously, we left some bones over there. But give me a moment and I'll get a sheet here and we'll see if we can, another sheet of paper, and we'll see if we can put together the complete skeleton. Okay, for our final activity, what I'd like to do is try to assemble a skeleton. All right, I'll move this a little bit to the side, and this is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. So we'll take one of our skulls and put it right in here, and then a couple of the jaw bones. There's, I'm guessing these smaller jaw bones went with the smaller skull. Putting those there. And then, okay, so we need scapulas. Again, our scapulas are not in great shape, but we do have pieces of them. So I'll put, these are the shoulder blades. And then, let's see, we need the humeruses. I'll take one of each of those. Those are the upper arm bones. And then we need the radius and ulna, the lower front legs, front claws. Now we don't, it's very rare to come across the front legs and front claws because they're so tiny and they're very fragile. Whoa, that was a close call. Radius and ulna, again, I'm not 100% sure here, but I'm gonna take a guess as to what these are. A little one. Okay, so next we have some ribs. So let's grab some of these, put them in the rib boxes here. Make a little rib cage. Okay, and then the vertebrae. So I am, of course, these vertebrae, we know there were two animals in this pellet, so obviously these are vertebrae that are getting mixed between the two animals, but that's okay. This gives us just kind of a nice example of putting together an animal skeleton from what you found in the pellet. It's pretty impossible to tell which of these vertebrae went with which of the animals that were in there. Okay, so next we need the pelvis. I'll take my two smaller pelvic bones here and put them in here. And then we need our femurs. So maybe I'll take these two right here. And the tibia and fibula, the lower legs. And we were actually lucky enough to get those with the smaller bones still connected, which is nice. So that is that's the end of our dissection. Actually, we've identified what the owl last ate before it regurgitated this pellet, and we have successfully put together the more or less the general skeleton of a vole, which is what had eaten. And so that's how you dissect an owl pellet to see what the barn owl has eaten. If you enjoyed this video, I invite you to please like and subscribe to see more science videos like this. Thank you.